Hello, everybody. I'm Tom Macisso, and this is our second edition of Two Toastmasters Talking. I'm currently the Division B director, a longtime Toastmaster from primarily Blueberry Hill Toastmasters. I'm also a member of the Main Thing Advanced Toastmaster Club. Recently, I joined that. Uh, my guest tonight is Todd Rothstein. Todd, hello, bud. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Oh, you're welcome. It's going to be great to get a chance to chat with you about Toastmasters. Todd is a successful Toastmaster and a difference maker for his clubs, for the Area 6, and for the whole District 45, really. He's employed by Investor Housing, does a great job there as a director of construction services. Todd has been an adjunct teacher at Southern Maine Community College as well. He's held numerous leadership positions within a club, but also he has been the Area 6 director, and he is a current club coach. So welcome again, Todd. And my first question really is about Toastmasters in general. Something that you think people might misunderstand about Toastmasters, and could even maybe, if they had a different perception, might get them to even come to a meeting. So what do you think that might be?
The primary or the most prominent misunderstanding that I've ever heard is that people think that Toastmasters is just about toasting somebody for their birthday, for a wedding, maybe throw in a eulogy, but certainly not about formal public speaking and presentations. And the second thing that people misunderstand is that not knowing that Toastmasters is mostly about leadership. I mean, that's the motto is Toastmasters, where leaders are born. And people don't understand that that's something that we strive to grow our leadership skills and others that have leadership skills.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that tagline, where leaders are made. It's really, really, that's a great point. How do you think the pandemic has changed our organization as a whole?
It's like putting our clothes in the dryer. It's been tumbling for the last 20 months. I remember as the area director was preparing for the area contest at a remote site, and we're leading up to it, and we were hearing about the pandemic as it was creeping along. And then I recognized that this, even if I'm okay, I had a feeling that our facility was going to close down. And a week before our club contest, it happened. And so we adapted, right? We said, oh my God, well, I had a Zoom account at the time. So I just said, well, let's do it via Zoom. And then a couple of weeks later, the entire organization responded, which was great. And then everyone was stepping up about what's the right protocol and how do you do a contest? How do you do the area, the district, so on, so division, district, so on. So we have learned to adapt. That's the biggest thing I've seen with Toastmasters. And then, of course, we had that opportunity to, some of us, meet in person. And then there's, well, how do we meet in person? And those that want to meet virtually can do that. So the hybrid has been extremely challenging to get it perfect, right? When we meet live, all of us in the room, it's who has the lectern and presentation. It's easy, but virtual and live mixed has been a challenge to do it well. And I'm still working on it with both clubs that I'm part of. So I would say that that's important for us to continue. That's really affected us quite a bit. And clearly there were some people that only wanted to meet live and left. There are some that would have left had we not had virtual. So we're still figuring it out. I think that we're going to, in the next few months, actually be primarily virtual again, and then migrate to hybrid, and then it'll be a while before all fully in person.
So
So it's
everybody out there in Zoom land, you have to blame Todd if you don't like Zoom, because he got us into it. No, I'm kidding.
I was
That's
going to I was 4 meetings a week, right? For when I was the area director, I was like, I felt like Noah's Ark. Like I have to save all my flock.
but thank you though. That to do that in a week's time frame is that's impressive. And so we could still have that contest, and we could still, and we're using it today, even
Oh
this
yeah,
year.
yeah.
So kudos to you. So what have you taken from what have you from Toastmasters, and what have you learned, and especially how does it apply to your work life? As I mentioned, you're the director of
Director.
construction services. You're in a
Mhm.
high level position at a really successful company. What have you taken from your Toastmaster experience to work?
Interesting. So one time I made the analogy of the Karate Kid: wax on, wax off,
Mhm,
up, down, side to side.
mhm,
I've been a Toastmaster for a little over 5 years and have done a lot of speeches and, like you said, leadership roles and the area roles. And it's subtle, but people at work are recognizing, Todd, you've changed. And I said, well, maybe it's my shampoo. I don't know. But they have noticed that, because yes, I'm in construction. And so I have been in construction for between probably 20 years. So manufacturing and construction, 30 years.
wow.
Male dominated positions and pretty aggressive approaches to get it done. And so I'm more though in a working environment, in an office environment, and in the field. And Toastmasters has taught me it's not just about what I say, it's what I hear others say. Level 2 of Toastmasters talks about the different listening and the different understanding skills that people have. I didn't realize all that. And like my one size fits all of how I'm going to approach somebody
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
work anymore. Those are subtle, and people
Yeah.
are recognizing that I'm more approachable, that I listen better, that I have better responses. My memos, it could be a text, it could be an email, it could be a letter, that they're very clear. And I use the speech techniques of what's my main point, what's my supporting information, and then conclude. It's very succinct. All of those things have helped me in the construction, in management, and being actually now I'm a um, I'm a division. I have other people working for me, which I haven't had for a long time. I mean, I would be a site supervisor and have a project manager would have hundreds of people working at different levels, but people actually working under me is new. And most of that's because people recognize I've matured in the last 5 years.
An overnight success, right?
Overnight success, who would have known that level, finishing my pathway would have gotten me where I am today.
So it says a lot though about what you've learned and how you've applied what you've learned. And I think you mentioned it, maybe you didn't say it exactly the way I'm going to say it, but there's such a big difference between hearing and listening.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think, and I think that's you've
The
proven
whole
that.
evaluation, really listen. Look, what we do, sometimes people evaluate about, hey, when I didn't like your story, but the real evaluation is how am I critiquing you without bias, your skill sets. What tools did you use to do that presentation? How did you behave in that few minutes? And that's how I'm looking at people at Toastmasters, but also I'm reading people's language at work, how they're presenting to me, what
Absolutely.
they're saying and how they're saying it. It makes a difference.
Good for you. That's really and that's what it's all about. And that's what we want our members
Mhm.
coming in to learn. So that's a really great point. what has your biggest setback been in Toastmasters? Maybe even something you might consider a failure, which isn't something that we should shy away from, in my opinion. I think we should learn from them as well.
Mm,
And what did you learn from your setbacks or possibly a
mhm.
failure?
Sure. The greatest setbacks have been preparation or the lack of their preparation. Thinking would be prepared for a speech or even an important contest speech and not giving it that due diligence of preparation, the working it long enough, do the edits, work the timing, and then do the presenting practice, and then doing the presentation. And by the way, that is the same thing that I have to do at work. If I'm not prepared, you feel it. But
Yeah.
we talk about this all the time. Yes, in Toastmasters, if I fail, I fail. I don't lose a finger. But at work, if I fail, it's that could be detrimental, or at least incredibly
A
embarrassing. That,
revenue for the company, or yeah, yeah,
oh yeah, look, we're all looking, we all have an ego, we all want to grow, and we all want to prosper. And if you fail at work, well, that just it hinders your opportunity. At Toastmasters, it's an opportunity for us to learn how to then not fail somewhere else. And that's one. The other is I like Toastmasters, and I wanted to learn to, I say master, but to get better at least at
mhm,
what it means to present. What I realized is that not everybody has that same drive, that same aspiration. And there have been times early on where president, I'm asking of a lot of people, assuming that they're like me.
yeah,
And that's, again, part of the listening and learning of people. I learn more to be a mentor. So people learn at their pace, and I'm there for them when they need it. That
that,
was a good learning lesson.
that's important. Good for you.
Mm, thanks.
So let's lighten it up a little bit. We've been talking a little bit about some heavy duty Toastmaster stuff.
Sure.
You could have coffee, have a few minutes or a little bit of time with any historical figure. Who would that be, and what would you talk about?
Besides my grandfather and my father, who passed on early, I'd love to sit and have a cup of coffee with them,
Sorry
talk
to
to
hear
them about, yeah, sorry, thanks, but like things I learned in life, like, hey, I'm actually a grandfather, like it's amazing to be able to possibly have that opportunity would be great. And the other person I just thought of it was Thomas Edison, Ben Franklin, real inventors.
that. Mhm,
The people that I'm inspired by are those that look at life and
mhm.
see it in a different way. How can I make it better?
Wow.
Not,
Yeah.
it's not about them ego. It's not about them owning something, although Thomas Edison had tons of patents, so he owned them all. But he changed our life because he saw things and was able to create what wasn't. That is amazing. And I really get inspired. And my question to them is how, what is it that, how do you see things? How does, how do you have the energy and the commitment to persevere through all your failures, right? Because we know that Thomas Edison had many patents, but he also had many failures,
Oh,
and to
absolutely.
keep going. So that's what I want to talk to about.
Yeah. What a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So, how do you work with current members in Toastmasters and people that you've been around? You're a member of two clubs, as you said, and you're known throughout the district now, and you've
Wow.
made your mark. How do you work with members to be leaders in Toastmasters? We all have to replace leaders. How do you see yourself maybe helping with that?
Interesting. Besides voluntoling him, just telling him what to do, because that's effective for a while
Yeah.
until they melt down, right? So never shy away from discussing the value of the executive roles.
Yeah.
I I am inspired to tell people about wanting to be the president of a club and the vice president of a club. They're challenging. I get it. More than, look, I'm a sergeant at arms right now. I've been president, vice president multiple times. Sergeant at arms is fine. They're an important thing, especially with the virtual thing. But think about this. People come into our club. I did. I know this. I walked in because I wanted to be better at public speaking, and I wanted to understand what leadership really meant. And I was voluntold to be the vice president and then the president. And I held together our club, changed our culture with support from my coaches, Maria Wynn and Daryl DeBridget, who are great at Greater Portland.
Absolutely.
And they just said this simple thing: look, it's your club. What do you want to do with it? And I said, wow, I really can do that. And then my executive team worked well and developed some really great documents that are still being used today. And at the end, I was better for it. Every other week, I had to be prepared for my meeting. I couldn't just show up and say it's a spectator sport. Every week, I sent out notes, emails. They were basically letters to the club, keeping them informed. And it was emotionally and rewarding. We went from about 10 members to almost 22 or 24 members within a 6-month period. And that was phenomenal.
That is great growth. That really
It was great. I remember the laugh when we got to 24, we didn't have any room in the space in the room and we had to change the configuration. And I remember it was with looking at John Stavis. He was the vice president of education at the time. We looked at each other. I'm like, I don't know what to do. This is crazy. But we did it. And so now there was a person that wanted to be the president. They just said, look, I'd like to talk about it. And we did. And I said, I can't tell you specifically how, but I know you will come away from this completely rewarded by being the president of this club, that you have the support of your core members. There's no major failure, but just being responsible for a group of people every month, it's not hard. You have enough support. The program is already created, and you walk away with incredible skills. And that's the same thing with the vice president of education. We talk it through. I have this 90-day onboarding that I talk a lot about with my club, and it explains the roles. We talk about it early and often, and that's why I try to get people to understand the new roles so they stay on, they get more out of it. Because, and I've said this for a long time and I really believe it, Toastmasters is not a spectator sport. Like you don't come to listen to me talk in front of the room. I want to listen to you talk. I want to learn from you. You have to participate. We participate together. And that's how we're both going to grow. And that's how I try to present
and
it
it's hard
to.
for new people. And one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you to be part of this second edition of Two Toastmasters Talking is the 90-day onboarding.
Sure.
So would you please go ahead and take the lead and tell us, for those that maybe haven't heard about it or not sure about the details, you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah. So when we were growing, we were bringing on new members, and quite quickly we realized that how were we going to mentor new people when we had mostly new people? Like, I couldn't be a mentor of 4 people, and there was only 4 really core people, then there was some fringe people. And so we learned early on, we need to figure out, what is our mentoring? What's expected of a new member? What's expected of the mentor? What does the mentor have to teach the mentee? And so we started from that core of teaching somebody what's realistic in 90 days. And we realized that if you could teach somebody to get to a level 1 in 90 days, which is learning how to get to your website, your club's website, and then obviously the Toastmasters International website, the survey, making sure you pick your pathway, make sure you do your icebreaker, understanding a role, understanding what I'm expecting of you in 90 days. That's how it started. And that's what this document is. It's about 16 pages. Now, nothing in the document I created that's never existed. It's basically putting it in a small packet that I can email to actually I sent it to prospects all the time. Why not show them that we have a succinct, descriptive package that they can get an understanding of what are the roles? What does an executive title and what does that function do? How do I get on the site? What are the pathways? And there are 11. We list them all out. So all those fundamental initial concepts, when I first joined Toastmasters and people before, during the book era, right, the traditional era,
Yep. Yep.
I came in, I said, what do I do? They said, give me a check, you'll get a couple of books in about 10 days. I got my first book, right? And I started reading the book and I did speech number 1 and number 2. And that's all I really had to do. Show up and I get to learn eventually about what these other roles were. But now it's kind of complicated, I think. Go to this website to learn this, go to that website to learn the other.
Yep.
Pathways is a personal journey that you practice in the club setting. That's not so easy to absorb right away. And so we
you
wanted
took it from the new member's perspective, and you said he or she needs to know what we know because we've been doing it for years. But
right.
From their perspective, it can be a little bit overwhelming because there's so many different avenues. Yeah,
it's overwhelming. And then if you have a new club, or you have a fair, like you'll have a fair amount of new people. They may not know all the answers. They may not be able to guide people. They may not be able to know what it means to be a mentor, right? Level, I think it's after level 2, you have in your pathway, you have an opportunity to do your mentor pathway. It's a separate pathway. I get it. But in this 90-day booklet, it has 2 pages of a specific checklist to take somebody through the first level of their speech. Reach out to them, make sure they've created their speech. Do they need help? Did they speak to the vice president of education? Did they sign up on their website? All of these just checklist steps to help people not have to ask without any idea. You read it, and if you have a question, we're here to help.
It's awesome. Yeah, really, it's a GPS for Toastmasters when you first set up. I know, as you said, you didn't create it, but you made it easier for people to get going. And as you know, you don't have a second chance to make a good first impression. So
right.
It allows the club and the new member and you to create that. So
yes.
Last question for me.
Okay.
Where do you see Toastmasters going in the next 5, maybe 10 years?
Sure. Well, I'm not that high up in the food chain. So they surprised me with even going from traditional to pathways, but it makes sense, why print out all these books when you could design something and people can then just go on the website and pick it up. It was genius for cost savings. And then but they also were reading the market. People were being more in tune with online computer programming, self-education. So it was really very bright. And this connection with, oh my God, I guess I stumped myself. Toastmasters and not the chamber, but help me out.
Rotary.
Thank you. The Rotary. Right. That's fairly genius, except I do see things on a Facebook page, but I don't have enough. There's not enough synergy yet, right? And I think that that has to continue to flourish. The other thing that I would like Toastmasters to do in the next several years is make the programs more, I'm going to say formal, but at least have a calendar of monthly learning objectives so that new members, even existing members, all right, for retainage, and new members when they come in, that there's a sense of urgency of why you need to be here. Like I could join in September, but in, January or June, there's stuff on speech writing. Well, I want to stick around for that because that's important to me, right? I'm writing a book and I
Yeah,
need to learn
yeah,
about that, you know?
yeah.
And then
Give
you
them
see the
yeah,
calendar.
that, a focus,
And so,
right?
right,
A month
like
or whatever the case may be, yeah.
like nothing technically changes in your club. You have a theme, you have your speeches, like none of that has to change,
I
except
love them. Yeah.
right, your vice president of education, she says, all right, for the month of September, if we meet 2 times or 4 times, we're gonna focus on speech openings. What's a good opening? And there's multiple ways of opening a speech: with a question, with a statement, with
Mhm.
something outrageous. And if it's just a point of focus for the month of September, which is speech openings, and at the end of just like a you have a odd counter, you have all these other quiz master. Well, you can have an education master and just talk about each person. How did you do? Did you
Like,
incorporate it? Did you not?
love,
Could you?
yeah.
And so I really feel,
Great.
because there are other organizations that always have a, hey, join now, come now, learn this. And we're more of this like never ending story, right? And so, but you need that sense of urgency. And I feel that we could benefit, one more way to benefit, by saying that there are things specific that we want to teach and we're going to go over each month. It's that sense of urgency. And one last, you know, we're all clubs, individual clubs. And I get that we all have different cultures. That's the beauty of a club. But we don't have to be really these remote rugby clubs where we do our own thing. And
Mhm.
what would it be like if every club was marketing on Facebook and LinkedIn and WhatsApp and everything else that, hey, the month of September, Toastmasters is focusing on speech openings. And it doesn't matter which club, they're all different, but that overarching theme is all the same. We can work off each other because we're all focusing on something that's the same. Even though we have a different culture, different nuance, different people, who knows, 2 speeches that day, 4 speeches, it doesn't matter the club, but that
Yep.
educational master that month is always bringing that part. So maybe you are, for that few minutes, you're teaching somebody something as a takeaway.
Yep. Great
That's
point.
what I would like.
Really, I think that has a lot of value to it. Well, Todd, it's been a pleasure.
Sure.
Really do appreciate getting the chance to talk Toastmasters with you. I know I learned something, and you happen to be our current club coach at my home club, Blueberry Hill, and
Mhm.
you're also a member now. But the one thing I wanted to mention, and it kind of fit into what we were talking about, but I
Mm.
was reading an article, and Warren Buffett, one of the
Sure.
most successful people in our country, said he was asked the question, what is one piece of advice you would give to somebody starting their careers right now, either in college or just after college? And do you know what he said?
No.
Warren Buffett said, I would have them invest in being a better communicator.
Nice.
And I said, wow,
I know.
Warren Buffett is talking about getting people to be better communicators. What better place is there than Toastmasters?
I've recommended Toastmasters to multiple people that I work with because I see them either doing the same mistakes that I might have done, or they're afraid in their own skin. and it's mostly centered around communicating to a group. One young, successful person in our organization that I work at, you could tell that he's a direct communicator,
Mhm.
just the facts, and that's okay. I recognize it. So when I speak with him, I give him just the facts. I receive just the facts. But when he might be speaking to planning board directors of a
Yeah.
town or fire department who is very subjective, maybe that person is more, you know, they're more analytical.
Yep.
They don't work well with just the facts. They need to analyze. They need more time to process. And
Yeah.
he now needs to understand it's not about how he wants to communicate, it's how that person processes and how they want to be communicated to. And so that,
Audience centered, right? All speaking is audience centered. Yeah.
yeah, so that's, and there's so many people that are coming up, the college ranks, the obviously the new entrepreneurs and the new people that are joining our organizations. They may not understand that, and that's what we do. We do it for fun. I pay to learn that twice a month about
There you
making sure that I'm speaking to the right way to my club, right? And so that's important for people. And that's
go.
what, and I like what you said about Warren Buffett. It makes sense.
Yep. Well, Todd, thanks again. I really appreciate you taking the time,
Sure.
and I think this is really going to help some of our listeners, and that's the point of having this podcast. I really hope that people will, maybe if they only have one speech at a meeting and if they couldn't get enough speakers, maybe we can have this podcast on, or maybe
Oh,
you
yeah.
can take snippets of it and take from it what you will and learn from it.
Right.
So, hey,
That's great.
Happy New Year, Todd. I appreciate your time, and
Yeah.
uh, we'll talk soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Thomas.